There is a question that's been burning a hole in my soul for as long as I can remember. What does it actually take to live at full wattage? We get one shot at this life, and yet so many of us spend years dialing ourselves down, ignoring the things that make us come alive. I believe something powerful happens when we connect with who we are and what lights us up. We become electric. If you've been waiting for permission, consider this your sign. I'm Courtney Carnes. This is Full Wattage. Let's get into it. My guest today has built companies, sold companies, lost companies, and rebuilt himself more times than most people attempt once. David Kidder is a 4-time exited founder, 2-time New York Times bestselling author, and creator of Growth OS, a system that helps more than 40 Fortune 500 companies, including Nike, Procter & Gamble, and Citi, act more like startups, nimble and fast. He's an investor, a speaker, and a founder of the Board of Life, a human and AI experience for leaders navigating defining moments. But here's what I want to tell you about David. I first met him in Malibu, then again in Miami at an event for post-exit founders. He was in the middle of a transition between what he had built and what was coming next. The room that we were in was full of people who had achieved extraordinary things and were just honestly searching. And David was right there in it, exploring, asking, and building, not forcing, just in it. And that's the David Kidder I want to talk to. This conversation is about what it actually takes to keep beginning again, who you have to become, and who you have to stop being to get there. So let's get into it. David,
Great opening.
thank you.
Thank you. Spot on and lots to explore there. Very excited. Wow.
So I want to get started kind of exploring who does someone become with nothing? So you're a multi-time founder, you've had a lot of success and you've had a lot of struggle. When a company ends and the world sees a founder between ventures, it's much more than that. And it's a little disorienting. No title, no mission, no team or momentum. Who are you then, David? What is that journey like?
The answer to that question has changed a lot. There's so much to unpack there. You go through these moments where your identity and your well-being, in a lot of cases, is linked to the company you're building. I've read a lot of research about founders who've had a lot of success and then gone right into a lot of failure. And the TLDR on that is the reason why they experience failure after selling a company is because they stopped doing the things that got them there. So that's a really powerful way to say is if you don't deeply, deeply care about the problem or the need you're solving, when you sell the company, you're really selling the entire energy of that outcome. It stops. And so aligning your life, your inner world with what's happening in the outer world around things you deeply care about. When you sell your companies, it's just a financing. It's not an exit. And you have a team remaining behind or with you in some cases to complete the journey. And so you have to have all of these ideas in your mind around, am I doing something I deeply care about? Is it for the money? Is it for the fame? Which are really bad reasons. The most important thing to get right is your why. Why are you doing this so that you have success no matter what the outcome is?
Take me back to the first time you successfully built and sold a company and the journey that you experienced then. Because this perspective that you're offering is coming from a lot of experiential wisdom. And I imagine the first time may not have had the benefit
Exactly.
of that perspective and quite so graceful. So
Yes.
tell me a little bit about that.
Of the 4 companies I've founded and led through exit, 2 were successful economically for the partner and for me, and then the 2 of them were not. So while we exited and the company kept going forward, we didn't make a lot of money or the company was eventually absorbed or pulled apart, because it didn't have that lasting constitution in it. But when I look at across those experiences the last 25 years, the ones that really did work was because when I was sitting across from the buyer, so the people we sold to, they just knew at a karmic energy level that they were dealing with a founder or a company that no one in the world cared more than we did. And the other companies that didn't have that type of success, I did it for reasons that were really about myself or my own journey, raising capital or getting credit or solving inner world challenges about identity or overcoming aspects of my life that I was really out of touch with
Mm.
that were shame driven or covering. And those aren't really good reasons to be working 7 days a week to build something. They're very perishable. They say success is a bad educator, and so those companies that went through real brokenness, both during the experience, but also after the experience, and just having to begin again and start over. And yet they're all gifts because they force you to stare down really hard truths about yourself and why you're doing it. And also the idea that in many cases, you're more than your company, and you need to learn that. You need to allow the company to become what it's supposed to become. And the more control and fear we wrap it in, the less successful it is. So all of these things are just here to teach you. When I look back at each of those individual 4 companies, each one was really like a mirror. And
Mm.
I did it consciously, subconsciously, where I was aware or not aware for very specific reasons that sort of created this rhythm and order of my own personal growth that was the entire purpose of starting that company was to learn that lesson. And I look about the companies I'm running now in the same light.
I want to go back to the mirror because I think that's really interesting. Sometimes you intentionally stand in front of a mirror and you get the reflection back to yourself and you're ready to receive that information. And sometimes, maybe late night, you walk by the mirror and you're like, holy shit, is that what I look like? And there's a little bit of surprise. So, can you talk to me about that mirror experience and how it's shown up for you?
I'll give you an example of it when it didn't work. Like I said, you learn 10 to 100 times more in failure than you do success. One of the things you do learn is that most of your success, I think over 80% of it has nothing to do with you. It's
Mm,
outside forces, right? It's just, you're not bigger than the Fed, bigger than geopolitics, bigger than a trillion dollars in AI infrastructure spending. These are the reasons why you're experiencing success. You're more about being there when it happens and being the person who most deeply cares about the need in the world you're solving for, but it could be you or someone else for a variety of reasons that you don't control that have quote unquote success or failure. And so allowing yourself to be aligned with those forces, to listen intently and humbly to learn what you need to become is very critical. And when I didn't do those things, when I thought I was the reason of the success or it was my energy or my brand, the selfishness of that was when it didn't work. It was because I couldn't listen to other people or I really didn't care about the problem deeply enough to really solve for all of it.
mm.
And that's
When
not
did you
that's
figure
not
that out?
occasion.
When did you figure out that you didn't care about the problem enough? Were you already well down the path or did you go
Yes,
into it? Yeah. It's
hundreds of
funny when that shows
employees,
up. Yeah.
tens of millions of venture
Yeah.
financing. Yeah, so I've gone to the scale with some of the best VCs in the world, and, our ability to navigate, the search or social data marketplace was way bigger than us. We had limited money, even though we raised, 30, $40 million with a couple hundred people. You weren't bigger than Google, and you couldn't navigate as fast or whatever those controlling elements, were. But also, you need to really listen and,
Mm.
be in truth, commercial truth. What is commercial truth? One aspect is it's usually happening from the outside in. It's not inside out. It's not product or technology in search of a problem. It's the need backwards. And then second is that it's based in evidence. That's what customers do, not what they say. Behaviors do not lie. And then lastly is that you could do it over and over again. You can repeat it. And what doesn't have that quality, outside in, repeatable, do versus say test, you're just it's wishful thinking's the enemy. You're just kind of crossing your fingers, hoping that the what you're building will work or it gets acquired. But underneath it is not the bedrock of truth in you or in the customer or in the team. Everyone's just sort of working really hard, behaving as if they're a successful startup, when in fact, the success is something that's evidentiary.
So when we go back to that, I think it was a Cuban restaurant in Miami
Ah,
where we were.
yeah,
It had a
it's very
good
cool.
vibe. We were at the bar chatting and you were in it. You were building Board of Life at that time, but you were just kind of towing into it. And my sense of the Board of Life is that it is a company that was a response to something that you needed in a pivot moment. Is that an accurate read?
Very accurate. I've been doing it now for 2 decades. I started with a TED University talk, 23 years now. I did a talk on creating a personal board of directors, both human and AI, but back then it was just human. A set of mentors or friends where you can make a higher commitment to growth and you have the accountability, the conversation to live it out. And over the years and learning the behavioral science behind it, learning the change around it, AI's role amplified the idea dramatically. I built and launched it this last year with a small team. It's kind of a forever company, and along the way, we work with executives who are going through these life and transition moments where you're really discovering who you're becoming, or you're going through a level up moment and you have to make a higher commitment and live it out. And the science behind this I think it was late 60s or 70s out of Berkeley. There was a couple professors who discovered the Pygmalion effect, which is They had taken a bunch of gifted teachers and gifted students and gave them an unrealistic goal of achievement. In making that commitment to each other, the teachers to the students, and creating a feedback loop, when they came back at the end of the year and they actually exceeded the achievement, the miracle was they actually revealed to both the teachers and the student that in fact no one was gifted at all. So how is it possible these average teachers and average students chosen at random were able to achieve beyond even the highest gifted students? And the reason why is because of a commitment and a belief. Belief has a reciprocity to it, and so the teacher's belief in the students became the students'
Mm,
belief in the teachers. It allows you to begin again. You're seeing someone new for the first time without their baggage, without who their identity was before. And so if said that Courtney's gifted and Courtney believes that, and Courtney believes I'm gifted, perception becomes reality. So you have fresh start, you have a belief, but you got to create a feedback loop that allows you to get you there. So we've replicated that experience that allows you to discover the commitment using AI. So it does this conversational investigation with you, almost like a super guide. And then we use the intentional progress model to help you tease out, well, what would be the intentions or objectives to live that commitment out? And how would I measure the progress? And a lot of these things are qualitative. So AI is really unique in discovering like, here are the intentions you would have to live out a commitment that wasn't like about losing weight. It was like having greater trust and agency in my
mm.
life. That's a very exotic question or commitment. But there are real intentions and progress you can measure as feedback. And you can share that with your board. And sometimes we create boards, or sometimes we take a leadership team and make it a board to each other. We're unlocking the science of change because allows you to begin again.
Yeah. And sometimes deciding to have a fresh start is the impetus of it. But then beyond that, believing that you can have it, believing that you're worthy of it or capable of it, right? And then the feedback loop is almost the reinforcement. Your TED Talk explores that space between who you are and who you're becoming. And during one of those gaps, what in your own life had to die to bring forward the new story?
I spent about 10 years after that failure, and then I started to recommit to things I deeply cared about. I wrote a book series that did very well. I started another company that had quite a bit of success, only because I was actually free because of the failure to do what I really cared about. I
Wait,
began.
hold on. You brush past
Yeah,
kind of profound.
yeah.
Say it again.
Well, I mean,
You were
I was
free.
free, really free, because of the failure to begin
Mm.
again in a way that allowed me to only do things I deeply cared about. And
What
I
okay,
learned a lot of lessons.
what about failure is liberating in that way? I've experienced the same thing, but I'm curious what your perspective
Yeah,
is on that.
you have to accept that failure is the most likely outcome of anything you do. And so if you can't stare that
Mm,
truth down and live in it, you really can't have objective reasoning on what to choose to do because you're not considering all the options, of which most is navigating failure. So the idea that you're going to make really good decisions perfectly and successfully, quote unquote, through any venture, personally and professional, is actually not doesn't have a lot of integrity in thinking. I ran for many years, I still do around this around premortems. There's postmortems, the concept of premortem. Renee Brown's talking about this now, Adam Grant, others. But asking the question, not what if you fail, but why did you fail? And that question unlocks yourself because it occurs. You move your psychology to the side of this happened, it's real. And then you can ask, why did that occur? And you start to realize that if you kind of return the locus of control back to yourself, the idea that, what is actually knowable and unknowable of those reasonings that why you failed, there's not many. You could name 50 to 100 reasons. If you know the skill of doing premortems and the science and AI takes this on steroids, which is what we're building, it's probably only two or three reasons that are actually knowable and controllable. It's very few things you actually have a local control that allow you to have quote unquote success. Question is do you have clarity? Do you have alignment? And are you actually going as that efficient frontier that's really anchored in commercial truth or personal
mm,
truth? Martha Beck has a fantastic book called The Way to Integrity. And I'm saying this not because of like the moral integrity of it. I'm not a perfect human. No one is. You have to have a lot of compassion and grace for people, including myself, the most. But if you want to change the world, they say, you have to stop lying to yourself. And then if you want to change the world, you stop lying to the world. And what that means is that you actually know your truth and then you're living it. And
mm.
you don't have to be perfect in this. And sometimes you can't say a truth to all the world because of the injury to it or the consequences of it. So I respect the fact that no one can walk around in their truth all day long, but you can definitely demonstrate that as a company, and you can create a culture around that that really deeply commits to being in it and open to it and calling it in. So they're doing the right things in the right order with the right people.
You said there's 2 to 3 reasons that cause people to fail,
Yep.
not a long list. And the pre-mortem is essentially evaluating your failure before the failure happens, facing that ahead of time. And I had a conversation with this PGA golf coach who talked about running through everything that could possibly go wrong in advance
Mhm.
of the shot. It's along those lines. It's not going to be perfect. And when it's not, how do you bounce back? How do you show up or how do you fail forward? So often our relationship with failure is one of avoidance or fear, which causes us to hold off from jumping off the cliff or taking that step. But if we anticipate that failure and we're planning on it in advance and considering it part of the lesson, tell me how one can shift their relationship with failure to make it less fear based and more curiosity
Yeah.
based.
Fear faced is fear erased. It becomes a
Fear
muscle. Like,
faced is fear erased.
yes, the more you face it and stare it down, the less power it has because you're actually acting in it. You're kinetically changing the nature of it because you know what it is. It's
Mm.
the absence of that agency, absence of that truth or that paralyzes you. You're falling until you start moving. So like once you start moving through these things, it's the action that matters. And then just going through the exercise of doing this is beginning to build kinetic activity in your ideas, your thoughts, and your action that move it.
So stuck on that. Fear faced is fear erased.
It's
That's
one I talk about
brilliant.
a lot. Yeah.
That is brilliant, and I've not heard it, and I don't it doesn't get enough
Well,
airtime, that's for
let me
sure.
let me reframe this for you or for anybody, which is
Yeah.
um the version of yourself, who Courtney's becoming has not been created yet. The what I'm building hasn't been built yet. That successful version of myself or yourself doesn't exist yet. You're creating it. So holding on to the version of yourself that is going to produce that same outcome is
Yeah.
actually what prevents you to grow because you're like, it has to look this way with these conditions, with this type of risk, prevents you actually from inventing or creating the systems of values, work, or the effort that produces that next version of yourself.
Yeah.
And so you can't create growth if you don't have the discomfort to move and shift yourself into that version of who you are, who you're becoming. So a lot of that's just fear. So you have to be able to stare it down in a very systematic way that's as high integrity allows you to do it. That's the big
I
unlock.
I know it enough to know it, but I have a lot of learning to do still. I have a relationship with releasing things that no longer serve the future or the identity that you are moving
Mhm.
towards. But releasing those things can feel very raw. It happens at inflection points that happen to you. Someone passes away, diagnosis, you are let go from a job, whatever, or inflection points that you impose on yourself. You break up with someone, leave a job, you move towards something else. And at those inflection points, whether chosen or inflicted, it is a state of total openness and moldability. And if you let those moments excavate who you want to be and shed things that no longer serve you, it has the opportunity to totally revolutionize how you've shown up. And I have learned that both the hard way and by and by choice.
Yeah.
Tell me a
This is the gift of failure is
It is
that
a gift of failure.
people don't look at it as a gift because they have loss aversion or sunk
Yeah.
cost bias, but lowers the cost to switch. The future version doesn't exist yet. So when you fail, you have nothing to lose. You're just setting it down. But when you're not failing, you're trading. You can't value what you don't see and know because you overvalue what you have. Failure is just allowing you to lower the bar of the cost of failure so that you can get to the truth of that future self. Which second order of this is teaches you to ask for things because you are helpless in many cases.
Hmm.
You're forced to discover the gift of permission to ask because we're so afraid to ask, and whether it comes or doesn't come doesn't really matter. Ironically, it's in the humility of the fear that you get these profound lessons of the ability to begin again, to start over.
What would you say to someone who's in the middle of an inflection point or seeing themselves fail, they're struggling, and wanting to make the safe choice, recreate what was already versus build something new and uncomfortable?
I'll tell you a story. I have a friend named Dr. Sycamore Rao at Columbia University. Wonderful guy. And I was going through a really massive change at one of my startups, like two startups. And he literally got in a cab from Columbia and came down to like Flatiron District in New York just to sit with me and said, I got a story for you, David. And he told me a couple of stories about the Navy SEALs and how they survived. But he also asked me to close my eyes. And I did. So I'm sitting in my office, total crazy chaos. So I close my eyes and he goes, "Why don't you close your eyes? You can do the same thing right now with me. I'll
Okay,
pretend
I'll do
you're
it.
me and I'm
I'll
Dr.
take
Rao." And he said, he goes, "I might close your eyes. I want you to imagine you're looking at a vestige of an environment,
Mm.
usually, outdoors, that gives you the greatest sense of peace. And what are you looking at? So you're looking out at the vestige, you're staring out, and you're in a deep sense of peace. What are you looking at? So what would you be looking at?
I'm looking at the ocean.
Okay. So about 99% of people say the ocean. Why is that? Why is that?
Oh, I
And
love
the
the ocean.
answer
It's
is
expansive. Yeah.
is that the ocean can kill you. The energy of the ocean is so powerful at a
Mhm.
subconscious level that you are forced to surrender. And it's a reminder that you control nothing. And it also reminds us that it's actually your control that's making you miserable.
Mm,
Surrender is the answer
so
because it's
miserable.
so when you surrender and you give it over, in this case, you experience the human experience in this conscious reality of you're forcing yourself to surrender, and in surrender is peace because you control nothing. That you allow things to become what they're supposed to become. So the reason why I was failing was because I was demanding a specific outcome. I wasn't
Mm,
surrendering it over to the universe or God we believe. The oceans is a physical reminder, but even the ocean is a representation in the human experience of what I like to refer to as I am consciousness. And you have to be able to accept all of the outcomes. And so some of those outcomes are failure, and you need to accept those and you need to be in truth with them. Equally so is also extraordinary success, but it may not look like your version of it. So the company has to become what it's supposed to become, which means you surrender, you allow it to evolve. So the reason why we fail so spectacularly is because we think we control the ocean. We're going to make a version that we demand from it, and we don't allow it to become what it's supposed to become. That makes us miserable. It also is not in truth, and then we drive the entire company or your idea over a cliff. So this question of are we aligned in truth?
hmm.
Have we allowed it to become as become? These are all sort of really big philosophical points, but they're extremely practical. It's so difficult in the world to build things to have any shot of being fortunate. So those are all surrendering, but they're also a pursuit of aligning of forces and needs in your gift that have to be true.
What's the connection of alignment on a personal level? What should people be looking for and at?
I mean, there's a great statement by Hiram W. Smith, which was when your daily actions are in concert with your highest beliefs, you have a daily
Mm,
credible claim to inner peace.
yeah.
You only have today. I call that becoming, knowing, receiving, and being. It's
Hmm.
funny because I actually didn't know what the being part was.
Wait, you said it fast. Do you call it becoming,
Yeah,
knowing?
the becoming name was, something that was given to me by my mentor and uncle who was a clinical psychologist. He passed away a little less than a year after selling his last company at age 70s. It was a brilliant guy. He's kind of like a second dad. He kinda got me started in my entrepreneur journey. When he sold the company, he promptly got glioblastoma and passed away, which broke my heart, but I got to see him before he died. I'm holding his head,
Mm,
or forehead to forehead. He says, "Don't focus on who you are to the world, focus on who you're becoming."
mm,
And it was just a gift because, when you get to the top of anything, you realize there's nothing there. It's all about
yeah.
that in the valley journey and falling in love with it. So you better be doing the right thing. It's aligned with you and discovering how to get aligned that actually unlocks yourself to keep going. That becoming
That's,
story was the
yeah, go ahead.
framework of this 9-year journey I did,
Mm,
12 different experiences with these molecules, really these 3 stages of learning around knowing myself, receiving alignment, and a lot of healing, and then lastly was learning to be it, and that only happened in the last year. I went to the Hoffman Institute, and these were extraordinary experiences that just brought this inner world into my sort of human world in an aligned way.
You've been on this path in a more enlightened way increasingly every day. How has this last year of increased alignment changed who you are and how you show up?
I mean, this is not a new idea, but I think you hold a space that's both in your perspective of your life, your physical body, all the heritage that's in your body, your parents' history, their marriage, all the things that have been projected on you. I think my journey has been to learn to set a lot of that stuff down, kind of generationally in a lot of ways, beginning to do the repair in a lot of places. And then the other part is the perception of it, which is how do you view it outside, the duality of it? Like you're observing your life. There's me talking to Courtney, and then there's, you know, the perception of our experience together. My soul is watching us. And that's a
Mm,
totally different view of what's happening here. So I think when you hold those two states, you can observe people in just their view of their life. Like there's conscious Courtney, and she has her experiences and her view of the world and what she's getting from this, her ambition. And in a lot of ways, everyone is sort of blameless in that. We're just experiencing and growing and trying to grow as much as we can in this journey. And so you have a tremendous amount of grace for the people, you have a lot of a radical acceptance for them. Um, and you're kind of in a journey. I like to refer to it as a loving journey, which is transactional. It's your inner world to learn how to receive and give yourself so you can walk with people in a loving way
mm,
that allows them to be themselves. And so there's a lot of freedom in that, but that occurs in the day you live. That's all you have. All your intentions are in your body, they're in your life, they're in your choices, your patterns, and the inevitability of all your work comes out of that. So this work today, maybe in a year from now, we're doing something together that's really special as that
mm,
happened today. But
mhm,
it was who we were today,
mhm.
now in this conversation, and who we're becoming that will translate into that. And that occurs in the 12 hours you're awake. And so that
Yeah,
person matters a lot, a
yeah,
lot. The care that goes into the mind, the spirit, the heart, the body, your actions, the openness to it. That's why fear is so destructive, is it just closes all the possibility of who you become and what you care about, what it becomes.
yeah. Yeah, that's powerful. I've come to this realization many times in my life, but it struck me again recently. It is very much about the present moment. I remember sitting in Miami and immersed in that conversation with you, and the times that I've allowed myself to be present and fully immerse in something has planted seeds that sprouted. This conversation for us is a sprout today. There's more growth coming down the path for us and what we do together. And I believe that. And when you give people your undivided time and attention, and you really immerse in those experiences and those relationships, it gives those things an opportunity to grow in you and in the other person to become something that it should be. But you can't rob yourself of it by
Yep.
not being present.
Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of permission you
Mm.
have to give yourself and other people and all this, and also the permission to ask for things. You know,
Permission's hard. Can I just say
permission's
that, like,
hard.
especially permission of self? We have a lot of external ideas in our heads. I've had the idea for this show for freaking ever. I think I was born to have these conversations because they bring me so much joy. And I had to give myself permission to stand up and be seen and not just shine the light on others, which is my favorite thing to do, but to take up a little light myself to make that happen. So I know it's hard from my own personal journey. What do you say to people who are struggling with permission of self?
When I grew up, my oldest sister was really accomplished academically, and I had, I still have ADD. I've been taking the same medication for 17 years. Changed my life. I was really, really struggled to focus. So I was an average student until she went to Cornell, and I started like becoming really disciplined, hyper disciplined for a variety of reasons. But I learned that I was actually pretty smart, but I actually didn't
Yeah.
believe it.
Mm,
Actually didn't truly believe that until much later in my life. And it's, again, out of the failure of this one of these companies, I ended up just deciding to write a book I deeply cared about. And
mm,
I had also just started going this AD medication, which unlocked my mind, and it became a number one New York Times bestseller. And I was so shocked by it. I mean, to see it in writing in the world blew my mind. I was like, wait. I was like, I needed that I had to do that to remind myself, actually, you are smart.
mm,
And that's actually sad in a way because didn't believe it. It didn't come from me. It came from this reminder, this symbol. And it was an important thing to do. It was very important to me. It taught me that You have good ideas, and the difference is that you act on them. You actually
Mhm.
do them, and when you do them in whatever you are going to do. You do in the best possible manner that you're capable of doing it. And to the degree it's world class, it'll be recognized or not, but that bar is available to you. And it was just a reminder, like, your podcast is what you deeply care about, and you need to act on it. It's like your moral obligation to yourself. This is your bestseller. Like, go do it. Like, and most people don't because they're afraid of the discomfort of putting themselves out there. I mean,
Mhm.
I couldn't have these conversations publicly, philosophically, because I didn't yet have them resolved in my heart. But I also kind of was like, oh, another person talking about this. Like, what do I have to offer? Even my own
Yeah.
inner world was saying those things. But the truth is, like, I maybe this matters. Like, maybe it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be mine, and I'm sharing it because yeah, I think it could be of service to people. It really mattered to me a lot. And if it matters to me, then it matters to other people. If it's one person, if it's just you, it's just you and I, then that's enough. And
Yeah.
um, so we'll just see where this stuff takes us. But it leads you to that first act of I'm going to believe in something because I deeply believe in it, and I need this, and I'm not alone. Like that is the permission to
Yeah.
go share it with the world. Because the outcome really doesn't matter. It matters because it's true to you.
And we have to decide that that is enough. We have to decide that acting on something that lights us up in a way that gives us a different kind of energy every day that we're working on it is enough. And what kept me from taking the leap of launching this thing, other than you know, that's a different episode, but a
Mhm.
lot of self talk that was not helpful and
Yep.
whatever. But what also kept me from it was I like to map the course before I embark on the journey. I like to know where it's going. I like to know what it's going to be. I want to know that it's going to be a success. Well, guess what? I don't know.
You
All I
can't know.
know is that you can't know. And you didn't know that your book would be a New York Times bestseller, but you sat down and you wrote it and you were markedly changed because you did it. And I am markedly changing because of the privilege of conversations like this. And if you and I leave this conversation changed, that's a win.
Yep.
If one or two other people listening
Yep.
leave impacted, that's a win. And we just have to decide that doing something also for our own joy is a fucking enough. Like that's just enough, dude. Like why not,
Yep.
right?
And most often, that is the only result. So, like I
Yeah.
said, you better care about it because it's probably not gonna be whatever definition of success you have, but it's just a mirror to teach you. It's just a mirror to teach you. I mean, I wrote a
Yeah.
book. I went out in that sort of like that renewing, that beginning again state, and I went out to whatever it was, 45 of my friends and their friends of friends. This is like 15 years ago. And I asked them a bunch of the best entrepreneurs I knew, kind of before they were famous. It was like Reid Hoffman, who wrote the foreword of the book, Sarah Blakely, Elon, and others, and asked them, "How do you bet your life? Like, and what's your best advice in like 20 categories?" And they all like did this. Like, it was really blew my mind, just because I asked. I learned like, oh, asking people will say yes. I expected it, and some became friends of mine, and I invested in their companies, and it was like really wow because of this one learning. Out of this failure became this radical journey, and I wrote this book called The Startup Playbook, not because I was trying to write a book, but because I was like, I should really capture and share this learning because I can't possibly be alone in asking what are the lenses, what's the mindset you view the world through that led to these successes, and as a result of those 300 hours, which I still have on video, I wrote this one chapter, the opening chapter of the book on a single flight from San Francisco to New York that resulted in this summary that came out of my ADD brain called the five lenses. And that summary, that one flight changed my entire life.
Hmm.
After that year, through the brokenness, the book, the learning, the story, and I was on stage with because of Beth Comstock at a GE conference a year later, 800 leaders in the room, and I gave that keynote, and it became bionic. What result of that after the next year with I was working with Eric Ries and others on this, and it really utterly changed my life. I think we built one of the most consequential companies over the last decade, at least in this growth services business. We built nearly a $30 million company that's now Accenture Song's most successful acquisition in their history. And at scale, hundreds and hundreds, of millions of dollars of revenue now, and an AI platform that has led me to these next two companies. But I would never have been there if I wasn't able to set down through fear and loss aversion, that old self,
Hmm.
and allow this version of my life to be built. because I was overvaluing through fear and control of what I thought it had to become. I didn't know. You
Yeah.
couldn't know. It's the ocean. It's bigger than you. So you have to surrender it and be you in it to and discover and ask for the answers of how it will shape. And it's way bigger than I ever imagined. I could never
Mhm.
imagine this, but it was here to teach me and I just listened.
God, that's beautiful. And you set down fear and loss and you picked up the pen on a flight. That's what that was.
Yeah, after collecting all the knowledge and writing with a co-author, these 40 vignettes of these entrepreneurs. Um, but let me also confess, like I'm in my early 50s now. I'm not walking around like some Zen Svengali. Some people go on these journeys in Burning Man and they come back and they get stuck at the enlightened phase. They have the answer. And in a lot of ways, you do. The red pill, blue pill, you're never gonna be the same again. And everyone around you is gonna be the same. And so you have to balance who you are versus where they are in their journeys, and also not come back and be like, hey, I have the answer and you're, this shaman or wherever you are. Like, and all of a sudden that becomes your new shtick. And so you can be just the broken version of yourself within being enlightened or whatever you want to call it, and then have that be the serving nature of who you are, which is
Mm,
also equally screwed up. So going through these experiences, you got to go slow. You really need to grow and grow with everybody around you because it has to be fair and equitable and a lot of stuff. But in doing those things, like you get the insights of the permission and the allowance that's required to be taught, answers that really weren't in your life, and then living them out and acting on them. So there's all these elements around designing your everyday person to receive and then allow it to change that are really critical.
I love that. When I was preparing for this conversation with you, which I've wanted to have for a long time, and on theme with the show, full wattage, shining at full wattage and not dimming on yourself or your dreams. And I was picturing you as a lamp, and you have the base of the lamp and you keep changing the bulbs with all of these different companies and ventures that you're starting. And at some point, maybe more recently, you've decided that the value of the thing is not the bulbs themselves. Those can switch out without consequence, but the source of the light and the power that runs through that vehicle, which is you, is always the same and it's always the foundation. I don't know how does that land with you?
I mean, I agree. I mean, there's lots of forms of light. Your work is one, your relationships. So you have kids, so you know that they're part of you. Your light is their light. I have three sons, almost 21, almost 20, almost 16, three boys. And when they turn 18, I um, do this ritual where I sit down with them before they go to college and I share all of this really radical insights and deep work. And I sort of bring them into the tent and be
Mm,
like, this is what this is. And
mm,
here's the work and here's the origin of self. At the end of that, I tell them, I'll always be your biological dad. And I'm always here for you in that sense. And yet I'm really your brother
mm,
from this day forward. We're walking together in I am. And I want you to think of me that way. I'm a little ahead of you, and I have a different set of baggage, and I'm sure, I've given you some, and you'll have to deal with those things, and I'm here to help you deal with them things because that's a human experience, and you'll receive more. But your own ability to move through those things and evolve and grow yourself is really what we're here for. And you're building your own version of yourself, and that's yours. You own your life. But allowing that to have that permission, that conversation, and seeing it with not with them, but with everybody, spouses, etc. Uh, Really is the nature of is the nature of our relationships, and one, that allows people to evolve and really have that locus of control in them to go do it. They're responsible for it, not me, not you. Like, that's their journey, and they need to own that. So, there's aspects of these type of things that of the light, you're birthing light, you're in it, but it's really theirs. It's
mhm,
true about company, by the way, too, which is
mhm.
it's just a company. The company is a thing that you're
You're a
birthing.
machine. I'm here crying about your personal story and you're moving on to the company structure. Carry on, carry on.
No, but I just like when you think about a company, like
Yeah,
it's a living thing. It's there in the world to serve. You're energizing it.
that's right.
Your light is its light, and it has to do that in in an amplified way.
Mhm.
I wrote a belief board for the family around when the kids were little about what is the purpose of being a kidder, and it was to take your God-given gifts and have tremendous impact on people in the world.
Mm.
And that very simply, which is you have to create extraordinary more impact than what you're rewarded with, like
Yeah.
10 to 1. Like, and you shouldn't feel bad about the economic or social reward if you're living out that level of impact. It should be attributed to you. It should be received to you. You have the permission to have success. You have the right to impact or wealth or whatever you want to measure it because of the reward. But you can never be a life where it's the opposite, where you're literally just taking,
Mhm.
where you're asymmetrically being rewarded for it. You're profiting at the expense as opposed to being rewarded for the impact. And then so that's something I'm trying to embed in my own life, but from a very young age and want it in theirs so that when they get to the later part of their career, they're like, yeah, I had a lot of success and it was whatever that is measured, but it's a residual of this extraordinary type of asymmetrical impact I've had in the world that's part of their life. So there's aspects of how to think about the amplification of self and the quality of the light, what it has to be
Mhm.
to feel that your inner world and your outer world are aligned.
Yeah. What's the consequence, David, for someone whose light does not intend to drive impact or serve a greater good, in your opinion?
There's a lot of humans that have gone out and expressed themselves in the world, and has that person me in any way? I mean, I'm sure that there's a price that they'll pay for harm or whatever the karma consequence of that stuff. We all have things that we've done that
You don't
have
have the answer to that? You don't
or
have the answer
do.
to the karmic consequence?
No, I mean it's more of a self awareness.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll have to pay
I'm sure
my
we all
dues
will,
of and
yes.
I have, but I'm sure there'll be more coming. I mean, you're always changing. There's things you would redo, but
Yeah.
and some stuff that you won't. You just accept. It's like the shadow self. There's parts of you are like, that's who I am, and I know how to bring myself back, and and do less harm as opposed to more harm. You're aware, and some people live in harm. That's how they were rewarded because they were harmed, and they are harming, and they're just carrying generational consequence inside themselves, and
Mm.
without the moral obligation to solve for it. So that's you should expect that to happen, and you can protect yourself by having such acute awareness of what that is, not out of fear. They're not here to harm you. They're just doing who they are, but also protecting your energy by not being in the orbit of people who are harming.
That wasn't a trick question, but it was a hard question. I want to hear from you, David, on the concept of success versus happiness. You have taken many paths and many forms on this so far. Which version of you would you say is the most successful?
Good question. I mean, I feel a little bit like Benjamin Button, like I'm living backwards. Growing up, those things had a lot of beautiful aspects of some really very complicated, hard things
Hmm.
in my life as a result, but also my family's life and all the generational stuff that comes with that. And so working through that in a courageous way is not easy. And doing it all while my family with kids, all that companies, the years and years and years of, 80, 100-hour weeks and sleepless, all that stuff is just I look back, I'm like, how the hell do we get through that? And the version I'm going to now, it's like it's a lot lighter. So I think it's less about adding, it's more about having removed
Mm.
so much. So like the more I've removed, I think of it as the dope, the tar that covers you, sort of like money, sex, power stuff, like all this stuff that just packs all over you. You're not really you, you're just the tar. Like getting rid of that is so much easier way to navigate your
Mm.
life and your work and your impact. But if you're removing it is really, really hard. There's a great payoff if you're willing to do it. It just means that you're gonna really have to pull yourself apart to do it. So highly recommend it, courageously. I think this version is probably the truest it's ever been. I hope it's 10 times better. My friend Bill Wise says he didn't raise his kids to do better than him, but to be better than him. And I think
Mhm.
my kids are better, way better humans than I ever was or even am, which is sort of like, thank God.
Mhm.
And that's the greatest thing in my life is to know that. Everything else pales in comparison, honestly.
I
You know,
agree. I agree. It sounds like you're doing an incredible job.
I don't know.
And well, as a friend, I'm going to tell you, you're doing an
Oh,
incredible job. How's that?
thank you.
Period.
I
It's not up
receive
for
it.
debate.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
not up for debate.
Usually I'm like, "Oh,
Uh,
no." But yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
let's let that just be true because it is. And then what version of you has been the happiest?
I'm pretty happy now. I have friends who when I look around and sort of you're the sum of your 5 friends, I have a group of founders I've known for 25 years. We've been together through all the journeys, highs and lows, and success, failure, relationships at beginning, ending, health, all those things. There's some of them are incredibly successful. Some of them are still going through the journey, but I'm just happy for them. We all build our boat and we want to travel around and experience it. And some people have bigger, fancier boats. Some people have smaller. It doesn't really matter. It's just like that
Yeah.
was the purpose of their life, and you're with them. So being with them is hugely important. It's called the
Mm.
Tuesday list.
It's called
I'm
the
really happy,
Tuesday list. Is that what that's the
but I really
group?
yes, but
Okay.
I'm happy in who I am in the context of my relationships and
Yeah.
their growth in a
Mhm.
way, if that makes sense. If you suffer from the sin of comparison, it can ruin your life, but if you're really just with everybody in that in their storms and they're in your storm and you're in your peaceful waters and theirs, like you get a chance to really be happy in whatever the circumstances are. That's really where I'm sitting today is just observing the perspective and the perception of those things, but I'm not alone, you know?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
feels really good.
Yeah. And my last question for you, is there anything that you still want that you haven't said out loud yet?
That's a great also a good question. I took quite a bit of time off after my last exit, and I realized I wasn't done. And there's really is no being done. Like I will never be done. Not because I'm not content. It's more because I don't want to be done. Like with the most authentic reasons. I think David Brooks calls it, or maybe it's Jim Collins, who's got a great new book out called How to Live a Life. Highly recommend. But he talks about it's the encore.
Hmm.
Like I always want to sit in the encore and I've taken the little thimble of my brain in my life, I've maximized the shit out of it,
Yeah, you
and I'm
have.
not done. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not done. Like, there is no done. So,
Yeah.
that to me is the being framework, which is I'm just being this and what I wanna put as much light energy I can through it and maximize it. Like, what else is there? What else is there to, like, stop? Why would you stop?
Right.
For what? To, like, rest? I mean, sure, take rest, change your time, your energy, your how you allocate your resources, but, like, there is no top of the mountain to get to retirement or money or whatever it is that's gonna ever make you happy. It's literally the becoming. Who are you becoming, and how is the greatest amount of energy and light going into that, which will change over time. Thank God it will change. But
Mhm.
you in it, to your light bulb point, there should be lots of lights and
Yeah.
lots of different ones, so keep amplifying.
Mm. I cannot think of a better place to end this conversation than that point right there. Letting your light shine, letting the light source be strong, and keep switching out those bulbs and letting it rip because you're never done. And there's a lot to give. David, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you, how much I respect you and your journey and all that you've built. I'm grateful for your honesty. And I just think you're a rad human. And I'm so thrilled to be able to spin on this planet with you. If people want to find you, David, and get connected, where can they find you?
You can find me at davidskidder.com. S as in Steve, David S. Kidder. I'm on LinkedIn. You could just look me up. And it's funny because people really don't do this. This always blows
Mm.
my mind. I do a lot of public speaking. And so I'll be like, here's my email to whatever, 500,000 people, executives, whatever. So maybe my content sucks. I don't know. But like
No.
you're like, "I really wanted to write." I'm like, "That I'm literally on LinkedIn." And so few people are either by fear or whatever, act on it. And when they do, it's been amazing. People who have permission and are building of that light, they just do it. And that's where greater things happens. It just sort of threshes itself out. So if you wanna reach out because I will respond. And I'm kind of shocked at how few people actually do it. And do it in every part of your life. Act
Yeah.
on everything. Like, just let it happen. Let's see what happens. So, extraordinary results occur.
Okay, I hope everybody heard that. Reach out to David, find someone else you want to connect with, and go for it. I can attest some of the best conversations in my life have come from doing exactly that. And David is no exception. In fact, I think I hunted you down for a great conversation, and here we are
Yeah.
today. So,
Yeah.
eternally grateful for you, David. Thank you for joining. After we finished recording, David and I kept talking, and the insights he shared were so good that I had to add them in here. So now back to the episode.
I had a confession I was gonna mention, and I lost my train of thought, which was in the last couple years, as I was starting these businesses, I've actually been up at night afraid, like between like 3 and 4 in the morning, very
Mm,
consistently for
mm,
like a year almost, which is unusual because of despite all this talk of, and you know, trust and being and becoming these things, like you still are human.
yeah.
And I didn't really know how to navigate that because it was brand new to me. It's funny because when didn't have a lot of public success or even financial success, I was never really worried. I actually had no anxiety.
Hmm,
And I realized now that as that has evolved over time, like I actually had things to lose. And I was like, that version of myself, I was really hanging on to. I was like
mm,
playing to lose, just not to lose, which was keeping me up at night. There's a great book to read called Top Dogs by Poe Bronson. It's one of my favorite books. And he talks about the psychology of playing to win versus playing not to lose.
yes.
And they use sports and shootouts as a perfect science of decision making. So hockey or soccer, you have a tie, you go to a tiebreaker. So the first striker in each one of those scenarios goes up and they score 81% of the time. And the reason why it's so high is because you're playing to win. You're
Mm,
tied 0-0 and you have nothing to lose. And interesting enough, if you go up by a goal or you remain tied 0-0, the next striker will come up or shooter will come up and score 92% of the time. So success becomes success because of your mindset of you're playing to win.
mm,
Now, conversely, if you're playing just not to lose, you're operating from a place of fear, you go down by a goal, the probability the next striker goes up there and shoots and scores collapses to sub 60%.
wow.
It's a negative momentum. So I was experiencing this reality in my mindset, despite all of this deep work and all these things. I was living out this playing just not to lose view of the world. And it wasn't until I really worked through that and said, "You're gonna be fine. And here's the pre-mortem. Like you're gonna this is the worst case scenario." I had a
Mhm.
dark night of the soul at 10 last year. And what I did is I went back to my old self and I I worked really, really, really hard on the two or three things I knew and I could control, that locus controls returned back to me. And I went offense and it worked. So I'm saying these things not as some hand wavy philosophical, but really the applied physics of change and how to live in it. And I'm a pretty simple human, like very just get a couple things right and how you think, how you act, and build that future version of yourself, the company. But you got it. It's just kinetic.
Mm,
So I wanted to be very honest about, despite all of it, I still got trapped a year ago. Really difficult chapter of playing from that place. So you can still go back. So, but there's a
What
way
is it
through it.
what is it about the 3 to 4 AM time slot? I have joined you on that stress journey many times, but also the concept of playing to win versus playing not to lose and the momentum that compounds there. We did a study, just as a side note, on communities who don't come from generational wealth. The verdict of that research, this was with Hame Watt at Share Ventures and others. People who come from a lineage of financial success are playing to win versus playing not to lose. And
Mhm.
those who do not come from means, they're operating from a place of lack because that's where they grew up. And when that success starts
Completely.
to compound and you're building with energy and vision and you are looking for things to work versus looking for things that won't work, you always find what you look for. And that starts to change
Yeah.
the way you show up too.
I grew up in a family without a lot of resources, quite frankly, both from a spiritualist perspective, but also just because, it's hard to raise a family of fives. And so I made a lot of mistakes and I tried to go get it. But the reality is like I didn't know what it was. And what it is just engendered life.
Hmm.
To me, again, not a new idea, but the way I think about it is, every year there's a $70 trillion river that's flowing by you.
Mm,
And then next year, there'll be another $70 trillion river flowing by you. And the year after that, we know $70 trillion. Like there's a river, and you're either in it or you're not. And you can stand on the shores of it and be like, I don't like the river, what it means, what it does, but it's not going to exist. And you can hold your thimble out. You can ask the river to give it to you, or you can get in the river and you could build something, or you could join someone's boat, or you can join a big boat or a little boat, or create your own boat. You can navigate the complex parts of the river or the simple parts of the river. Some parts of the rivers don't move. Some parts move very fast. But the point is like it's occurring.
Yeah.
And the only way to get it, the only way to be and have resources that are engendered life is to be in it and creating something of value and meaning. So I think once you realize that, the whole scarcity thing goes away and you
Yeah.
actually can decide how you participate in it and how do you keep it and preserve it. Being in the river and creating things of value to be rewarded is very hard. When you lose that understanding, you're willing to spend it in a way that you lose sight of it flows through you and away from you or out of you,
Mm.
which full
Mm.
circle comes back to says, if you don't care about the thing that you created in the river that created your wealth, what it is, and you stop being in the river, you're going to have quote unquote failure because you never cared about the thing you built in the river. You just wanted the river. There's a lot of injustice. There's a lot of cementing of the river. There's a lot of generational tax law that makes it very
Yeah.
unfair. Some of the parts are closed, but there's still a lot of the river that's wide
Yes.
open. And AI, by the way, is one of the greatest tools ever that makes the navigation of
Equalizer.
it
Yep.
availability
Yeah.
totally levels the playing field in a lot of ways, and yet
Yeah.
also can preserve it. So it's a very unusual moment, but you can't blame the river. You
Yeah.
own a lot of the outcome of how it's navigated.
You own your relationship to an experience in the river.
Yep,
Yeah.
and you shouldn't be afraid of it.
You shouldn't be afraid of it. I love that. That's
It's
powerful.
not put it this way, it's not afraid of you and what you're
It's not
asking of it.
afraid of you.
Nope.
Yeah. It's not afraid of you. That's right. It is not afraid of you, and there's no request that could be made that is too great for a river so abundant.
Yep, 100%. The question is, have you given yourself permission to ask, and for what?
It all comes down to permission and clarity, actual clarity, so
Yeah,
that when you start building the thing, building the relationships, you're going after the things that you want versus creating noise.
mhm, 100%.
Hmm. This could go on all day. Okay. Any other nuggets you want to drop on this?
Maybe I'll close this, which is I think people underestimate what they need to have quote unquote success. You
Mm.
really have to have people who are rooting for you in a either in their self interest or in their interest for you at a very amplified and significant way for you to have success. It's very rarely the individuals. It's really the community. It's the ecosystem. It's the buyer on the other side of the transaction who deeply cares about you because you care about the same things. You need a lot of people who wanna see you win to win,
Ye
and you're not gonna have success if you think you're gonna do it alone. Your rags to riches store, self-made person story, I think it's bullshit. I
Yeah.
think you really have to have such a genuine belief and commitment to the thing you're solving in the world that people just wanna come and join you and grow it. But transactional individualism, I'm sure it happens, but, it's rare, and if you don't understand that, you're gonna try to go create your quote unquote "success." You're gonna be alone for a long time.
Mm.
I love this quote. I've been using it now after my keynotes, and I learned it from my friend Eric Solomon, who's our former CMO of Instagram, and is sort of the acting CMO of our 2 companies. He did and this woman who was the first female bishop in the New York diocese, she was explaining this. So she finishes her sermons with when people compliment her and say, "Hey, I love that you had such impact." She goes, "You know what? We did it together." And now I use that as the way I close out my keynotes or the things, and it's I would say here, which is we did it together. We might not know who's listening to this, but we did it together. I think you have to remember that it takes you and a lot of aligned souls to have impact in whatever version of success you're going to have in your life. And it's important to align them and ask for it.
Yeah. That community piece is, never been more important than today, I don't think. I mean, it's always been important, but now in a world where you can build in such isolation and you have access to so much, affirming thought from a machine perspective, surrounding yourself with humans who are aligned with you in vision and thought and can challenge you, can promote you, can partner with you, and can share that energy. It's no good to be 1,000-watt bulb that's shining in the
No one's
middle
in
of
the room,
nowhere,
in the
right?
middle
No
of
one's
nowhere.
around. Who are you shining your light on? So that
Yeah,
ripple effect and that collective glow is everything, especially now. I think that collective glow is everything.
agreed. I love your glow. And thank you for
Dude,
bringing me on. I really appreciate it. Very grateful.
I'm grateful for you. Thank you for your time, as always. Thanks for spending time with us. Follow me on Instagram at fullwattage.co and let me know what stayed with you. Know someone who'd love this conversation? send it their way. And if you haven't already, follow and review the Full Wattage Show so you never miss an episode. This is Full Wattage. I'm Courtney Carnes. See you next time.